Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tabby Violet. Today I'm doing a video on the 7 best ways to buy vintage and save money without getting scammed. I'm sorry it took so long to film, but I wanted to actually take down notes and give you as much tips as possible without forgetting anything. I kind of put myself through the thought process of buying vintage bags because I have several. If you haven't seen my video on my vintage handbag collection, go ahead and check it out. I'll link it down below and I'll also put it in the eye up here. So yes, go ahead and check out that video. I have a pretty good collection and I have been collecting for a while now. So I have purchased from several different sites. I've learned from trial and error and I have found really good deals that have saved me a lot of money. And I hope to do that with you guys. Right now, vintage is pretty popular if you guys love it. And there are just many ways to go about buying vintage bags, but you have to make sure that you do it without getting scammed and make sure you do it safely. Many subscribers reach out to me to say, I'm so scared, I don't know if this person's reputable or if I'm gonna get scammed. And here are the tips that I wanna offer you guys from my experience, and hopefully it will help you out. So tip number 1 is to always do a lot of research. So I'll see a bag that I really love that's vintage, whether it be something that I have seen on a Pinterest picture, whether I've seen it on IG, whether I've seen it in person. So at this point, vintage bags are really good because you can get designer items for a fraction of the price, and that's why I think a lot of girls like that, because you can get them for a designer look for so incredibly well priced. And also there's a story and a history to it. So what I mean by doing a lot of research is once you choose the bag that you like, you can either go to YouTube channels if there's girls that have it, search the bag that you like, do some YouTube research if you would like. The first thing that I typically do is I just Google it, I look at a lot of pictures, I go on Instagram, I stare at the picture, the bag, I analyze it. You can also go on the Purse Forum, you can go on Fashion File, other reputable sites, and look up that bag and compare different bags with each other, look at noticeable details, and just really analyze and know that bag well. So when you're searching for your bag, you'll kind of have an idea of what you're supposed to look for. I know a lot of you girls like to figure out what the next trend is, and like as far as my Dior saddle bag goes, or my Gucci Affidia goes, you know, those are just bags that I purchased before they relaunched. I have to thank Mel Sodera for posting her Dior saddlebag video. It just sparked my love for the bag, and you know, so I knew I had to look for that, and also Hey June. And then then I started following Dior, and then I found out that they were going to be relaunching, so I jumped on that wagon and I purchased it before other people started catching on or realizing. And also with the Gucci Affidia, I've talked about this in many of my videos, so I won't go too much into it, but the Gucci Affidia, I actually went onto the Gucci website and looked at their fashion runway shows and everything, and it showed this bag being relaunched. I've read blogs and I've done research to figure out that that bag was coming out. So if you like trendy bags that are going to come out in the future, those are some tips on doing that. But either way, just get bags that you love, and if there's a bag that you love, do tons and tons of research so you can kind of know how to self-authenticate on your own. By no means is that the final step. You can also talk to your friends and also fellow purse lovers. For example, I love talking to my friend Kat on Instagram, the Luxe Edit. We have similar tastes and I really admire her style, so anytime we buy things, I'm like, what do you think about this bag? Do you think that's a great price? You know, other purse lovers and people that understand this world, don't be afraid to reach out to them. Reach out to YouTubers, reach out to Instagrammers, or reach out to bloggers, or people that you know have the item or have a good opinion or a kind of an expert opinion on it. Talk to them. It also helps as well. Number 2 is take steps to protect yourself from scams. So it goes hand in hand with doing a lot of research. Also, it means, having a PayPal account, because, if you don't use PayPal, you use your card or other means to pay, you're not necessarily protected. With PayPal, they have a protection plan if you purchase through invoice. So do not purchase with friends and family. That doesn't cover you from scams. So if there's a scam, you can't appeal it. So always do it through invoice and not friends and family. If you choose your friends and family, then that's something that you might have to take into your own risk. You won't be able to appeal, and lots of times PayPal takes a while to appeal, and this is not from personal experience but from research, and it can take months whether they take the buyer or the seller side. That's kind of up in the air as well. You find the bag that you like, pay attention to details. So look at all the pictures, look at every single picture, zoom into the pictures. Also read the description of the item, and also look to see if there's an odor, look to see if there's a damage to it. They usually are very descriptive on their descriptions, and a lot of times if they don't have a lot of description, that kind of makes me a little suspicious, so I tend to kind of gravitate away from that. But if there's not as much, I ask a lot of questions as well. Another thing, what I mean by paying attention to detail, is also make sure that you can return. It depends on where you purchase from. So if you're purchasing from a reputable site, which I'll get into next, you also have return policies. I usually like to buy from sellers that allow a 14 to 30 day return policy. Sometimes that's not always the case, but I really do like to have that as to make a reassurance for me when I get the bag and I authenticate and I look at it and I don't want to keep it, I want to keep it. It's just nice to know that you can return it. Step number 3 is buy from reputable sellers and sites. So what I mean by that, there's reputable sites like Fashion File, Yugi's Closet, Vestiaire Collective, eBay. eBay can be a little tricky. Sometimes you can get scammed there. Etsy, sometimes you can get scammed there as well. But Fashion File has a really good return policy. They have authenticators, which I personally have bought pre-loved items, and you can buy vintage items from there. You can purchase from Facebook, addicted luxury sites, buy and sell sites. So they have Louis Vuitton, they have Gucci, they have Fendi, and pretty much all of them. Now that doesn't guarantee that that's reputable, but it has a lot of people watching the site, and a lot of I have seen where someone posts something and then people are like, oh, that's fake, blah, blah, blah. There's just so many, lots of knowledgeable people on that site. Now that doesn't guarantee that that's reputable, but through the site, like I said before, you can purchase with PayPal invoice, and that protects you as well. That is not always the best route to go, but if you feel comfortable going that way, then you can do that as well. I really like local resale luxury vintage stores. A lot of times if you go to vintage stores, you can find really good items. If you go in, sometimes you may not find things. It's like a hit or miss. A lot of times at vintage stores, you can find really good items. Also, you can look on IG for resellers. Now that's not always reliable, so again, like I said, do research, and if they have a lot of followers, really good comments and reviews, then that kind of is an indication of being reputable. But always go with your gut, do tons of research. Also for eBay, how I indicate a seller is reputable, as you can say, I like to purchase a lot of times from Japan, and now this doesn't always guarantee it to be, to prevent yourself from scammers. Japan has a law where they can't sell illegal items, so that protects you in a certain aspect. And also, I always on eBay look at the ratings. So the people that I usually purchase from are highly rated eBay sellers, whether they have like 99% to 100% like ratings. I read the reviews, I read the comments, and they have like thousands upon thousands of like 100% feedback. So that's how the reputable sellers, when they sell luxury items. I look at the other items. So you may come across a eBay seller that has really great reviews, like 100%, and maybe they have like a few hundred or so. I always like to click on the seller's other items, because a lot of times they may sell onesies, twosies of like vintage bags, and then the other things are like vintage clothes or just vintage knickknacks or just like random things. So a lot of times that kind of raises like a little bell in my mind, like, okay, they don't solely just sell vintage bags, because that makes you feel safer. But if they have great reviews, I always like to ask questions, which leads into the next step. Number 4, ask a lot of questions. So after you find your reputable seller and your reputable site, then ask a lot of questions. You know, you've done your research, you found your trusty seller, you have found your item that you want to purchase, then you've read the description. A lot of times descriptions, I like to look for the keyword authentic. Now, a lot of times people won't put authentic, even though it is authentic, which I'm not sure why. I always like to have my protection just in case I get the bag and it's not a real bag, and I have email traffic through the seller. Through eBay, I will ask, is this bag authentic? I will also ask, is there an odor? Because a lot of times when you purchase vintage bags, they will have odors, which sometimes it's just like a closet odor, which isn't that bad. It just kind of smells like cloth, a little bit older, and you can clean that up. And sometimes there is like a moldy, musky odor, and I've had that in the past happen to me. And the seller, seller smells are up to a person's, own opinion. It may not smell bad to them. So a lot of times sellers would be like, a smell of closet or age, all smells range. So I specifically like to ask, is there a bad odor to the bag? Also, I like to ask them, can I see more pictures? I just ask a lot of questions. I also ask, where did you buy it from? Sometimes, I don't really say that all the time, but I just like to ask a lot of questions, and I also gauge the seller by communication and how professional and nice they are, and how they respond back to me. That leads me into my next step, and that's to help you save money, is ask for a bargain or a discount. A lot of people think that when you purchase from, okay, now Fashion File, like a real site like that, or a local vintage store, typically they don't, give you discounts or bargains, but stores from like a reseller or eBay, Etsy, or Facebook addicted groups, and even local Facebook addicted groups, because I can actually meet the person and look at the bag and ask them for a bargain. Those are cases where you can ask for better deals. It doesn't hurt to ask. The worst case scenario, they say no. So let me give you 2 examples. The first example is when I purchased my Chanel Diana bag. Now, I purchased this Chanel Diana bag from the Facebook addicted buy and sell Chanel group. I looked for this bag for years and years, and a couple years back, it was a lot cheaper, and now, people know vintage is more expensive, so they bumped the price. I've done several, amounts of research where I know that bags are being priced, now this bag is being priced for $2,000 to $3,000, but sometimes you'll find that rare gem or person that will sell it for less than $2,000 or so, depending on condition. So this girl was selling it for a certain price, and I saw a little mark on it, and she didn't indicate that in the picture. Well, she didn't really indicate that in person, because I said, is there any flaws? And also, it doesn't hurt to ask. So I asked her, can you drop, a few hundred or so, or drop this much, or will you take this much? And she was like, sure, because we had a really good rapport, we communicated, and she was like, okay, yeah. So I was able to drop this $200 or so, a couple hundred, I believe. And so, hey, I just saved myself a couple $100s. Now, for example, with I actually have a vintage bag coming right now. I'll put it right here. Actually 2, because one might be a giveaway for you guys. But yeah, I have one coming. A lot of times people don't think that on eBay, if there's not make an offer or best offer, that they can actually ask for a discount, but you can. So I don't know if there's rules you can't do it, but I've done it. And so I have emailed, I have messaged the seller, and I say, I'm really interested in the bag. Does this bag have odors? Is this authentic? So forth, and ask my questions. And then the last question is, would you be, you know, and they'll say no, and then I'll respond back and I'll say, okay, I'm interested in this bag. Would you be willing to take, you know, $50 off, $100 off, or would you be willing to take this price? And they will send you an email back and they will say that they offered this bag to you at, you know, 10% discount, and then they'll give you the price. It says review the offer, and then you can review it and then buy the bag for less than what it is. In my case, I purchased it for 24% less. So, you know, like, it doesn't say make an offer, it doesn't say any of that, but I asked for an offer, and then in the end they messaged me it, and I don't think a lot of people know that. So that's just a little tip for you guys to save money as well. And you're already saving money by buying vintage. The next step is be polite and professional and build a relationship. You know, that's really key to having, you know, a lot of people are nervous about the person scamming them, but be polite and professional, because they're probably nervous as well that you might scam them as well, and say that, you know, there's people that scam buyers, and I've seen sellers like say, oh, this isn't fake, but it's real, and then the person ends up losing their money. Like, a friend has had that in that case. So, you know, be professional, be polite, because on a lot of these sites, they rate you as well and you rate them. So specifically eBay, and people don't want to sell things to you if you're not rated well on eBay. So always be professional, be polite, and in general, just be a good human being and be nice and professional. And in the end, they're typically like that as well. That usually helps, you know, the seller want to be nice to you, or, you know, maybe do a little extra, you know, wrap nicer. They're like, oh, this person's really nice, I want to send it out faster for them. You know, there's just little like indications like that. Once you received your vintage bag, make sure that you always authenticate. Now, even though you've done your research, you paid attention, you think you've bought from a reputable site, you've asked tons of questions, you've protected yourself from scams, but you always have to authenticate. I always recommend that. So there are many places that you can authenticate online. A lot of people don't know leather surgeons authenticate as well. They usually only authenticate Chanel and Hermes, and I think Dior. I'm not sure about Dior. Actually, I don't think so. Only Chanel and Hermes. But if you sell, so my Chanel Diana bag had repairs done to it, so they send you a certificate of authenticity that this is authentic. So if you do work there, you can get it authenticated. Also, there's online sites that authenticate. I'll link some down below. And also there's an Instagrammer, Sabina Lynn. She also authenticates. There are local authenticators if you personally choose to authenticate in the city that you're living in. So always authenticate, even if you think it's real or authentic. It's for peace of mind, and who knows, maybe in the future you want to sell it. At least you have peace of mind that it's authentic. Lastly, if you purchase from, you know, Etsy or eBay or, you know, a seller, always give them a good review if you had a great experience, and say thank you. If you don't review these people, send a message and say thank you, I had such a great transaction with you, I really appreciate the transaction. And why I tell you guys these are tips and I include these in these tips is because you're building rapport with the seller, because, you know, you're building rapport, you're establishing a relationship. And for example, my Dior saddlebag, I purchased it from an Etsy IG seller, and we really gained great rapport from each other. And so when I was looking for bags in the future, I would go to her and she was like, yeah, I'll go look for you, because we've had a great relationship. You just never know when you're gonna want to purchase another bag, and it's great to have great relationships because sometimes they may discount you. Also, they may, you know, it's great to be a good person and to build great relationships, so in the future you can buy more vintage. Okay guys, so I hope these tips, I know it was a lot of information, but I really wanted to make it detailed and in-depth for a lot of you guys that have been asking me, Tabby, how do you buy vintage bags? What are some tips? What are some tricks? Now, these are tips, guys, so always be sure that, you know, if you always follow your gut and always do what you feel is right for you, and never be afraid to ask tons and tons of questions. I hope this was very helpful to you guys. And just to recap, I'll tell you guys some tips again. Always do a lot of research. Take steps to protect yourself from scams. Buy from a reputable seller or site. Ask for a bargain or a discount. Be polite and professional. Always authenticate. Follow up and give a great review. And if you guys follow these steps, I really feel that you guys will have a pretty good buying experience through, you know, buying vintage items and also protecting yourselves. There are always cases that things happen, but I wish you guys happy vintage shopping, and I will chat with you guys soon. If you guys like videos like this, don't forget to thumbs up and comment down below. I will talk to you guys later. Bye!